Well, Brandy, thank you so much for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Yes, my name is Dr. Brandy Nunez. I'm a veterinarian. I'm a modular synth musician that focuses on space music, and I'm an analog astronaut.
And I understand you're preparing for a lunar mission, March 31st, I think.
That's right. I leave for the high seas habitat on the Selene 5 mission. We leave, yes, March 31st. So we'll just be there for 2 weeks, and I'll be conducting some astrobiology research, some sound research, and some space food research. I'm on one of my teams is doing the Deep Space Food Challenge. And so we're going to be working on some stuff to try to get some good ideas for that challenge.
That's amazing. And about the sound thing, you know, I we all think of space. Well, I don't know how we all think of space actually. I haven't asked, but you often think of space as being like silent and quiet, but you're inside of this facility with all these fans constantly going and all this industrial stuff. And whenever you're in your space suit, I mean, I gotta imagine those are actually fairly noisy environments to be in.
They're very noisy. There's your life support systems, which you hear the whirling, and you have, yeah, the machinery equipment and other, gas sounds. And then, as we know, as Perseverance has begun to send us back some sounds of Mars, the winds of Mars, we can just imagine all of the other sounds that will be emanating from the planets and the moons and elsewhere in the cosmos.
Um, I gotta imagine that these engineers that build these pieces of equipment are more focused on actually just making it work, right, and being reliable and that type of thing. But and maybe trying to make it as quiet as it could. But if your experience as a musician doing like modular ascent space music, I was wondering if you had any thoughts about, well, if you couldn't make it quiet, then at least make it like this, and what your thoughts might be.
I mean, I guess I hadn't thought about that before. I'm just in the process of doing field recordings. That's what I really like to do is take sounds from nature or sounds from, at this mission, we'll be down in the tubes and the lava tubes and looking at the cave acoustics. And yeah, once we get up to the moon, once we get up to the Gateway Space Station, there's just going to be lots of opportunities for recording, which will document for posterity all of the things that are happening. Maybe just not in a I mean, yes, video is important, but I think audio can be just as important. The sounds of humans, the sounds of space, the sounds of other celestial bodies. And now that we're able to collect data and turn that into sound, digitize it, turn it into just whatever. You can make whatever you want. They launch these CubeSat satellites and collect data, and then they turn those data points into notes or whatever, and they make beautiful compositions with music that is, basically thought up from space.
That it is really amazing. I think I attended the New Worlds conference a couple years ago in Austin, and there was a musician who had taken some astronomical data and then set it to music, used it to like generate music. That's kind of interesting. But you mentioned you were also a veterinarian. Do you do small animals, big animals? What do you do?
Mostly small animals and companion animals. I moved away from doing large animal medicine after I had kids. It was too hard to do on call overnight and that type of thing. So, yeah, I do small animal. I own a business. It's called Mobile Veterinary Services, and we do house calls and we do a lot of in home euthanasia as well, which is sad but a necessary service. So.
And what do you think about sending small animals like dogs and cats into space? I've asked a lot of people, did you know that we're planning to send astronauts to the moon in 2024? And I think a lot of people kind of just tune it out. But I feel like if we said we're going to send a dog to the moon in 2024, everybody would be all over that. So,
I think so. I mean, I definitely, I'm an applicant for the current cycle of NASA candidates. I haven't got my rejection letter yet, although I'm sure I will get it. But I applied to be an astronaut for the Artemis missions, and I do think that people, just like people want plants in space, people will want animals in space. We want those reminders of Earth, but also people realize the importance of the connections, of the health benefits of having pets. There's documented benefits. Now, how that, I don't, obviously we're not going to be able to take animals into microgravity, but on the space stations that will have simulated lunar or Martian gravity, like on the Gateway, or in a lunar base that would, uh, obviously be enclosed. I think there is going to be room. There's going to have to be room for pets in space. Obviously, the animals that have been taken into space thus far, have pretty much suffered terrible fates, but in the name of research and progress, and I get it. I'm not a fan of hearing about those stories, but I can understand why some humans have done that and seen. Obviously, we see animals as some of us see animals as things that we can test systems, test everything on before we put humans in the mix. So, but yeah, I think that there will be a whole other um, way for us to have pets in space. I don't know about, I mean, I think they're looking at aquaponics and doing like the fish that, having the fish and using those to fertilize the plants. And so maybe we'll have fish there first. And I know we're like, my group is looking at entomophagy for eating insects. So growing cricket colonies or growing beetle colonies or other things, insect colonies in space. But yeah, as far as mammals, we'll see how it goes. Hopefully I can be the first veterinarian on the Gateway or on the moon. So
That would be awesome.
yeah.
And in terms of like growing insects for eating, um, I know there's many different cultures that they see that as a delicacy, or kind of don't have anything about it. Uh, Having grown up in Texas in the U.S., uh, I have a little reversion to eating insects, and I was wondering if you had overcome this and you've actually been able to find them tasty, or if you haven't quite yet made that journey.
I haven't, I mean, the only ones I've eaten are like the candied insects, or, the chocolate covered crickets. I've had those. They're fine. But as far as how you would make it, reproducible and a consistent food source, and I think more tasty than just biting the heads off of grasshoppers or something. So yeah, I mean, there would have to be a simplified process to consume them. And yeah, obviously in our culture here, we don't do that a lot, but in many cultures we do. And I think it would be a good source of protein and of nutrients if people can overcome it. But the good thing about astronauts is that they're used to overcoming all kinds of challenges and food difficulties. So I don't know. I think you sometimes are desperate for crunchy things and for flavorful things in space. So maybe insects will taste great in space.
And I hear a lot of astronauts talk about how they lose taste
Yeah.
whenever. So
Yeah,
that
yeah, they lose taste. They crave those spicy things. I can't remember which astronaut it is. One of the women that were up in the space station, she got an onion and she just bit into the onion and she said it was the best thing she's ever had. It was crunchy and spicy and fresh. And here on Earth, we can't imagine doing that. So
and okay, so how did you get involved as an analog astronaut?
after I applied to NASA for the astronaut candidate program, I just made other connections in the space sector. Dr. Cyan Proctor, who has become my mentor, she is one of the original analog astronauts who did that big mission at the high seas for 4 months back in 2004. And that was when NASA was running some of the missions there. Now it's been taken over, and NASA would just rent it, or co-run some of the missions. But it's that facility has been taken over by a private company, and so they had an open call for analog for a Martian simulation mission, and I applied and I got selected to be part of one of the. It was the second all-female crew for the high seas habitat. So it was the Sensoria M2 crew. It was a Martian mission, and yeah, it was all women. It was a really great experience.
And I understand there's like a Polish military base that's also been turned into a place to do analog missions as well. Do you have any plans to maybe go there too?
Yeah, in fact, my team, Sensoria Space, Sensoria program, we're going to be conducting a series of missions and it's at that place. It's called the Lunaris habitat in Poland. So we're going to be having a series of missions that are going to be starting probably at the end of the summer and going into the fall at the habitat in Poland. We're going to be testing several systems that we're actually working on right now and testing some of the food stuff as well. So I'll probably, if I don't make it there this year, I'll definitely be on a mission there next year. But I'll be helping do some of the mission control stuff at the Lunaris Hab this year.
And these analog sites are great for very specific kind of spot testing of things over short periods of time.
Yes,
But if we're really going to branch out into the rest of the solar system, which I hope that we do at some point, it seems to me that we should be building sort of simulated space communities where people are living indefinitely and actually operating indefinitely with as much kind of closed loop and isolation as possible. And I was wondering if you thought that was also necessary and just kind of like what your thoughts might be.
I do. I think they tried to do that with the biosphere, biosphere, but and I think they're working on it. There's a new project that's happening where biosphere two is. So yes, I do think that's important. Longer duration missions, completely self-sustaining missions to see how we can, reduce our footprint in space, how we can reuse almost all the materials that we have taken and that we produce. I think that's the cool thing about this food challenge is that the contest is basically how can you produce food for long duration missions without taking a bunch of supplies, so basically growing it and all of that and without wasting things. And so that's really the central problem. And if we can figure that out for space, certainly we can use that technology and use those things here on earth to help with food shortages here on earth. But yeah, I think it's highly important to have as close of a simulation that you can to a Martian or a lunar environment. So we can get that data, any of the biological data, the physiological data on astronauts or on the analog astronauts, the plant data. We're going to have to be producing our own food if we're going to be on Mars and places farther in the solar system. We're not just going to have resupply shuttle missions once a month. It's going to be up to us to figure these problems out. So yeah, these analogs will help us in many ways to solve for problems in space and on Earth.
And if you look back 500 years, you have Christopher Columbus coming to North America, and then kind of all the development since then. And you have like the industrialization and all that. But um, if we look forward 500 years, where do you see humanity?
I hope I see humanity being kinder and better species instead of devolving into um, greedy, polluting monsters. So I think that with this new space era that we are entering, I hope, I really do have hope for the future of humanity, that we can work together, that we can overcome these petty differences that we see that divide us, country or color of our skin or all these other ridiculous notions that we're not all one species. And so I, hopeful that the international community will come together to do better for the inhabitants of Earth and for the future inhabitants of the moon and other places in the solar system. And that furthermore, we don't make the same mistakes that we've made in the past with the idea that all of this is unlimited resources. Humans have, for as long, since Christopher Columbus and whoever else came over, they've been messing with the land and messing with the natural resources trying to improve on some things that you just can't improve on in Mother Nature, and leaving a huge, terrible, wasteful footprint in the process. So I'm hoping that with the new generation of youth that will grow up going to space, grow up, never knowing anything but that there's, bases on the moon and a space station and, access to space, that we'll be solving for these terrible problems that we have here on Earth.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about kind of how we consume stuff and produced waste. Uh, like the whole space thing is how do you turn your a waste chain into your supply chain? It's just like I mean, ecosystems are able to do this very effectively. I mean, uh, the plants grow and then they decay, and that becomes the materials for the next cycle. And
Yeah.
we need to be able to do that with our water bottles and computers and tables and houses.
Maybe space will allow us to find different materials to use that'll be easier to turn into other materials.
And definitely provide the energy to do it.
Yeah.
I was reading a stat that if you looked at the energy being produced by the sun, only 1/700 billionth of it actually falls on the earth, and that powers everything we know.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I agree. There's going to be a lot more access to energy and to power once we can all go solar, use solar and electro, magnetic power to propel ships, to heat and light and energize our space stations and lunar bases and stuff like that.
And so, do you remember when you found out that we were planning to send astronauts to the moon in 2024?
Yeah, I found out through NASA's application call for astronauts, and I said, I'm doing that. And I started my application that very night.
That's fantastic. I hope you're able to go. Uh, I I think you will be able to sometime in the next decade. I just feel like the 2020s are going to be to space exploration what the 1990s were to the internet, and
Yeah,
the SpaceX Starship is the Netscape browser.
exactly. Yeah, there's going to be, and then now with all these commercial, the St. Jude launch, the Inspiration 4, and this Dear Moon. I mean, it's going to go crazy. I'm super excited about it.
Did you apply for Dare Moon?
I did, of course. Yes. Did you?
I did, but I heard people started getting a third email about doing some type of video or something. So I haven't received that, so I'm a little bummed. But
Get that yet either, but I know they were having some trouble. They extended the application deadline because there was some troubles with some people's second phase. I mean, whatever, millions of people. I think it's good to raise the awareness. It's something.
absolutely. Though, a lot of the people who I think are down and against the space program are the people who felt like, they had the opportunity, but it went to somebody else. So that's sort of the negative side about it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people say, well, why are we wasting all this money trying to go to space when we have all these problems on Earth? But I think that those two aren't mutually exclusive. I think that we'll solve problems on Earth as we solve them for space.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the last time we went to the moon, there were 3 billion of us. Now there's 7 billion of us. Surely 7 billion brains can solve more problems, especially with the tools we have available in terms of like the internet and, a global economic system. I mean, you get the idea for something, you put an order on Amazon and all the parts start arriving and you could build anything.
Yeah, definitely.
But how come, do you feel like we actually are producing more and more problem solvers or more and more problem creators?
I think that it's probably tipped the scales a little bit to problem creators, but then only just at this first part because nobody. I mean, it's just so new. Aerospace is obviously it's been around for a while, but as far as this boom that we're about to have, like this Silicon Valley style space boom, um, I think that just as many people that are trying to create and maybe will be um, creating new problems, there will be people on the other side who are very concerned about the global space community, about conservation, about conscious, about being it's different than it used to be. It's not just produce and just throw it in the ocean now. People don't want to do that anymore. I mean, I think especially the younger generation, they're very concerned about sustainability and about being able to you know do this for many many years, and not just have this boom and burn out and crash and burn and just make more space junk and stuff.
Yeah, I've been thinking about closed loop systems like with our plastics and stuff. I mean, imagine being able to take your plastic bottles, your detergent bottles, your cups and your bowls and your plastic utensils. You put them in the machine, you tell it what you want to make, and it turns that into that new stuff, and then you can put that back in the machine and it turns it into that new stuff.
Like the plastic replicator.
Exactly. Then I guarantee you start seeing a change of behavior. People are like, no, 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 don't throw away that plastic. I need it for the replicator at home.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I'm excited to see all the new technology that's going to come out, and it should just be a really fascinating, next decade or two to see where this goes.
Yeah. And well, I really appreciate this time to talk to you. I think we covered all the topics I had on my mind, but are there any things that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to?
Not really. I just think it's cool that you're doing this project, and I wish you luck on it. And I hope that you get to go to the moon one day too.
I hope so too. And I hope I hope I won't be there alone, that there will be hundreds of us on the moon at that time.
I think so. I think so. And then at the Gateway Space Station, I think we'll be there before the moon almost. So we'll see.
Well, you have a brilliant day and good luck. I hope your mission is successful and that the food challenge, I can't wait to see the results of that.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.